Mom of all trades here. I'm going to restore these windows. So as you can see, some of the ropes are broken, the glass is broken, and this one is cocked shut and will not open. So I'm going to take all this apart and repair them. Stay tuned.
In this section, I used a razor blade to score the paint so that it was easier to remove the trim pieces. In this section, I am using a long putty knife and a very small pry bar. What I'm doing is putting the putty knife in between and using the pry bar gently to remove the wood pieces on each side of each window. I'm also labeling where they belong, so when I put them back, they already fit there. So I've taken all the trim pieces that hold the window off. I've labeled them where they belong. I've taken the windows out. I've had to cut some of the sash cords that were still attached. Now I'm removing the old hardware right here. As you can see, there's paint on the screws. I also need to clean up all the flat mating surfaces here so that we get a good seal. As you can see, there's a lot of paint runs. I also need to sand the channels where the windows go. Soon we're going to open these up. This is where the weights are inside the window on each side. And on the two center ones, that one and that one, they're hollow and there's 4 weights inside each one. So I've already taken off the hardware on this one. I've taken off some of the paint. I've scraped it so it's level and the window can sit flush so we have an airtight seal. And this one I've done as well. So I'm going to continue on and get this window all ready for some sanding. I used a utility knife, a ratcheting slotted screwdriver because it's a difficult angle to get to the screws. I also use this flat trim tool so that I can get more surface coverage so that I'm not damaging the wood, and I'm using a chisel to pry it open. I also have been using a pick to pick the paint out of the slotted slots on the screws. So I'm just going to get back to work here and I'll keep you posted. Here I am removing the bottom glasses of the window and tying up the old sash cords so I don't have the weights falling out. Here there is a tiny screw and a little door that I'm removing. You have to remove these very gently. It is a slotted screw. We don't want to break that piece because we need to be able to put that back because the window slides up and down on that little door. So we got the covers off that cover the weights inside the window channel. I got everything open and exposed. A couple of the weights are still tied up there, but we're gonna get these all cleaned up. As you can see, there's some nails it rests on. There's one nail holding it, and then it's held in by one screw. So I'm gonna run some new sash cords and get those all ready. Here I am using a chain of paper clips and a piece of ribbon to run a fish down the channel so I can pull up the new sash cords. On the first window where I am working, it is 1 cord, but the second window that I'm working on here is 1 long cord and it feeds both the windows. So that was a little bit more challenging. So I got all the new sash cords in. they're all ran. They have to wait for the weight for the window to be installed. Got all of the cords in. This one runs from here down there all the way inside to this weight, back up this side and out that side. So it kind of does a big M when you're opening up the windows. Now for running new cord down the channel, I used ribbon and paper clips as weights. It works around the rollers the easiest, but you can make whatever tool that is easiest for you. So now we're going to get these pieces reinstalled and get sanding the window frames and getting some primer on these. So I'm going to be reinstalling these covers. We have to be very careful. They were nailed in. We're going to get to that. But first I'm going to tie on this weight, and because I can't install the window without the weight in there and this cover on. So I'm just going to tie the other end of this to something else. That way it's safe. So I just tied a tool up there to keep the rope from falling back in. So once I close this up, I have rope still accessible to hook up. So I'm going to install the weight. These weights just go through and it just requires a knot. Just like that. Make sure it's tight. I usually pull it a couple times and she's good. So we're going to tuck that right in. Make sure my rope up top is good. All right, we're gonna leave her right in there. Okay, so now there are 2 screws down below. I'll just grab the camera, zoom in. Okay, so I'm holding the camera now. So inside this hole, there are 2 nails that were used. I'm guessing they built the frame outside and then installed it. So on this, we have the slotted screw that secures it. And then down here we have 2 nail holes where it was, and as you can see we did rip it out, so we're just going to slide them back in and do some gentle tapping. Okay, so we're going to get this in. We're just going to slide it in because it's on an angle. We're going to slide that in here. May need very gentle taps. It's very fragile. Make sure you're lined up and flush. All right, we're flush as can be. Now we're going to just reinstall the slotted screw. All right, so we're as flush as can be. So now I'm going to finish the rest of them, and now it's ready to be sanded, and then I'm going to prime a lot of it. Some of it I'm not going to paint. There is a place where the windows slide up and down. I'm not going to paint, but I am going to sand it, and I'm going to lubricate it with a bar of regular soap, and that will help lubrication to get this glass moving up and down smoothly. So I'll get a head start on that. Got the windows first coat of primer. It's looking good. All right, gotta wait to do the second coat. So I got working last night, did some sanding, took the broken glass out, took out all the purging. This is the lip that it sits in, and it tucks right inside this slot here. Over here, I have another window. We've been sanding, taking out all the loose purging. Gonna repair that. And over here is one I haven't started yet. I took the hardware off, got some minor repairs to make. So I'm gonna get to work. So while I'm waiting for the primer to dry, I am boiling all the hardware. As you can see, they are covered in paint, but with boiling them, it just comes right off. Just peels. Look at that. It's like butter. So I'll clean all these up and then I'll sand them and get them ready for some paint. So here's the hardware. I have boiled it and then I soaked it in vinegar overnight to get rid of the rust. As you can see, it's still bubbling. Then I cleaned them up with a wire brush with the vinegar, and I've done that already, so now let me show you how clean these came out. Look at that, no paint. It's fantastic. The color is nice too. Too bad I'm gonna paint them. With the screws, I've got paint inside there, so I'm gonna actually use a wire wheel and buff those up before I get painting those. They're pretty messy. So, safety first, make sure you got your safety glasses on. Look at that. Beauty! Alright, so I'm going to repeat that on all of the screws. So I got all the hardware cleaned up and the screws cleaned up, and boy do they look good. No more paint in there. So I like to put it all on a piece of styrofoam to keep it all together, and I can poke the screws in so I can paint the heads. So we'll let that dry for a bit and then we'll get one coat of paint on it. Right, now I'm gonna work on the trim that holds the windows in. As you can see, I've got 3 sanded, very smooth. I'm repainting them white again, so it's okay. I'm just making sure there's no dents or divots. I'll fill in these holes when I reinstall them after, because I need to know where the nail holes were. I still got some here to sand. Some of them are covered in silicone, which is really hard to remove. I kind of got to peel it away and then I can sand them. Paint doesn't stick very well to silicone. So I got the window frames and first coat of primer on the exterior side. As you can see, I have some bleeding with my primer, so I got to do maybe a couple more coats. I got the windows done, 1 coat of primer. Then I got the trim, 1 coat of primer. And I got the hardware in the first coat of paint. It looks pretty sharp. Second set of primer put on the trim pieces and the windows. They're already starting to look good. So I'm back in the garage. I got 2 coats of primer on one side of the glass. Now I am going to fix the purging around the outside of the glass. You can see my nice line. I'm going to make that nice. And once the caulking is dry, I'm going to paint and prime the windows. So this one I've already started redoing my lines. Look at those nice lines. All right. See, I'm just working on this one here. And this is my new glass. Look at that beauty. She looks beautiful. My nice seams. All right. All right, the first coat of paint is on the windows. What a difference that made. Holy. All right. We'll let that dry and get a second coat on, and we're gonna go get a second coat on the windows in the garage. All right, 2 coats of paint completed. It's looking really good. Just gotta clean up these glass. I didn't tape anything. I'm just gonna use a razor blade and scrape it all off and then clean the glass. I actually had to put 4 coats of paint and 4 coats of primer on the trim because I stripped it back to raw wood and I got all the hardware done. Looks good. All right, so we got the windows hung, we got the side trim installed. I'm just working on reinstalling the hardware, and yeah, I'll show you when it's all done. All the hardware's installed, the blinds are back up. I'm just going to do some cosmetic caulking just right here, cover my nail holes, and she's all done. Got the curtains back up, got all of those gaps caulked and filled in now. I have a little bit of touching up with some paint, but other than that, let's see how they work. Oh, we got the locks on. We're gonna unlock those. And here we are. Just with a finger. And they all stay up. Look at that. It's perfect.